Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
What if your mind held the key to a life beyond fear? What if mastering your thoughts could silence every doubt you've ever had? And what if the one thing separating you from greatness isn't out there, but already inside you? A strong mind never pleads for respect. It commands it without ever uttering a word. It radiates quiet confidence. Imagine building a mind so sharp, so steady, so completely unshakable that even weakness would hesitate to approach. That kind of mindset doesn't just survive, it dominates. When you gain control over your thoughts, you begin to gain control over your entire life. But if your mind remains fragile, your potential stays caged, unable to break free. Discipline becomes your sword, cutting through distraction and excuse. Focus becomes your shield, deflecting noise, fear, and negativity. And control, that's your greatest power, the quiet force that shapes your future. So the question is, will you train your mind to rise above every fear, silence every doubt, and cut through the endless distractions? Or will you let your mind be shaped and swayed by the chaos of the world around you? The choice is yours, but understand this. Once you decide, the world will begin to reflect your decision. In just a few moments, you'll uncover the exact steps to forge a mindset so resilient that fear and uncertainty lose their grip on you. This is the path to unshakable self-belief, the true foundation of power. Most people underestimate the true capacity of their own minds. Inside each of us lies a fortress of untapped potential, waiting, sometimes for years, to be awakened. And when you truly believe in your ability, something shifts. The obstacles that once felt insurmountable, they begin to dissolve. The path becomes clear. Ask yourself, what truly separates those who rise to greatness from those who only fantasize about it? Is it superior intelligence? More resources? A stronger network of support? No. While those things help, they're not the core. At the center of all transformation stands one thing: unwavering self-belief. That rock-solid foundation upon which entire empires have been built. Why does this matter so deeply? Because the size of your life, its opportunities, its meaning, its reach, will grow or shrink based on the strength of your belief system. When doubt enters, doors close. But when belief takes root, possibility explodes. When true certainty takes root, even the tallest mountains begin to look like molehills. The impossible starts to feel attainable. But the world around you, it doesn't always nurture that belief. Society surrounds you with messages designed to shrink your vision. Be realistic, they whisper. Know your place. These aren't just words. They're invisible chains, wrapping tightly around your thinking and limiting the life you dare to imagine. But what if those so-called limits were never real to begin with? What if the boundaries you think exist were planted there by fear and not truth? Imagine for a moment, through intentional mental conditioning, could you begin to dismantle those barriers? Could you erase them entirely and walk freely into a life far beyond what you were told was possible? That brings us to the turning point, the question that shapes everything. How do you actually build this kind of unshakable confidence? It starts with one simple, yet powerful act: auditing your thoughts. Watch each one carefully. Examine them as if your future depends on it, because it does. Every time a limiting belief surfaces, thoughts like, "I'm not qualified enough," or "people like me don't succeed at this," catch it. Don't allow it to take root. Replace it instantly with a declaration that reinforces your strength. Speak to yourself with certainty, not hesitation. Make strong, unwavering declarations. I am capable isn't just a thought. It becomes, I possess exceptional capability. I'll try becomes, I will succeed without a doubt. This mindset isn't just theory, it lives in real people. Take Clarence Augustus Bartlett, for example. A man from Yorkshire, born the son of a coal miner. In 1962, he stood before the British Parliament. not after one attempt, but after being rejected 17 times. 17 times he heard no. 17 times the doors were closed. Yet he returned again and again. What set him apart? His belief. While critics sneered at his modest background, he stood tall and answered them with words that silenced the entire chamber. My father taught me that a man's worth isn't measured by his starting point, but by his unwillingness to accept defeat as final. 6 months later, that same man passed legislation that revolutionized education for working-class children across England. This is the kind of power that's unlocked when you choose belief over limitation again and again. Are you still living within limits that exist only in your mind? Could it be that you've mistaken a temporary challenge for a permanent barrier? Think about it. What remarkable things could you accomplish if you finally tore down the walls built by fear, doubt, and past conditioning? Your true potential lies dormant, not because it lacks strength, but because it hasn't yet been awakened by unwavering belief. It is only when you begin to live and act from a place of absolute conviction that things start to shift. And when that shift happens, the world notices. Suddenly, people respond to you differently. Some are drawn in, inspired by your quiet confidence. Others, however, may feel uneasy, even threatened, though they can't quite explain why. What they're sensing is your magnetic certainty, a presence that disrupts the comfort of mediocrity. When you refuse to shrink yourself to fit into the mold of average, it creates a striking contrast. And yes, that contrast can be unsettling to those who've chosen to settle. But let's be clear, this level of self-belief doesn't appear overnight. It's not something you wish for and then receive. It requires consistent, intentional effort. Every single morning, you must visualize your success in vivid, precise detail, so real that your subconscious begins to treat it as fact. Then, as your day unfolds, affirm who you are and what you're becoming. Speak it until there's no room for doubt. Remind yourself, again and again, that your nature is unstoppable, that your path, while difficult, is one you're built to walk. Study those who came before you. Learn from the lives of people who faced circumstances far harsher than yours, yet overcame them through the sheer intensity of belief. Their examples are proof that it's possible, not just for them, but for you too. So, ask yourself, are you truly ready to build a mind so strong, so disciplined, that no doubt can find its way in? Can you commit to this transformation, knowing that the version of you who emerges will be almost unrecognizable to those who only knew your former self? Because the moment of truth is here. Will you continue to live within invisible walls, shaped by fear and false limits? Or will you finally embrace the boundless potential that has always existed within you? It begins, as it always does, with a decision. And that decision is followed by something simple, but profound, the commitment to disciplined daily habits. Because behind every extraordinary accomplishment in human history lies one universal truth. It began with something small, a repeated action, a habit formed, and over time, that habit became a legacy. Now, take a moment to truly consider what separates those who merely drift through life from those who rise to master it. What is the difference between individuals who barely survive and those who thrive at the highest levels? Champions of life are not born with superior minds. They don't possess secret advantages or mystical powers. Instead, they build greatness brick by brick through the steady repetition of deliberate habits. Day after day, they show up, whether it's comfortable or not, whether they feel like it or not. This kind of mental strength doesn't appear in a single moment of inspiration. It emerges slowly, forged through discipline and intentional practice. Over time, it reshapes not only what you're capable of, but who you believe yourself to be. Your identity evolves in direct proportion to your habits. But why does this methodical approach matter so deeply? Because the mind, like the body, responds to conditioning. Just as your muscles grow stronger under pressure and resistance, your mindset sharpens through repeated exposure to challenge. It's ancient wisdom, but still as relevant today as ever. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence isn't a single grand performance. It isn't something you tap into once in a while. It becomes a way of being, a rhythm, a routine, a lifestyle. And over time, it becomes your identity. When others observe someone who moves with consistent, almost machine-like precision, someone who shows up no matter the weather, mood, or distraction, it creates an undeniable presence. That level of reliability radiates quiet power. And yes, it can intimidate those who live by emotion, not intention. People who surrender to momentary feelings, who act only when motivation strikes, often find themselves overwhelmed by those who operate on principle. Why? Because principles don't waver. Principles anchor you in storms. And principles produce results that emotions never could. So, how do you begin to embody this kind of transformation? It starts with the structure of your day. Establish non-negotiable rituals, daily anchors that center and strengthen you. Rise at 5 a.m. while the world is still quiet. Claim that sacred first hour for yourself before life begins to pull at your attention. Fill it with practices that elevate your mind. Read material that stretches your thinking. Meditate to sharpen your focus. Journal to align your intentions. Protect this time as fiercely as you would guard your most valuable possession. Because the truth is, your future depends on it. The next step is simple, yet profoundly powerful. Choose one uncomfortable action you've been avoiding and complete it before noon each day. It doesn't have to be massive. What matters is that it's something you've resisted. Why? Because this daily practice trains your nervous system to face discomfort rather than flee from it. Over time, you reprogram your mental response to challenge, and that rewiring changes everything. Consider the story of Hiroshi Yamaoka. He didn't just improve a struggling manufacturing firm in Tokyo. He transformed it into a global force. How'd he do it? When asked about his extraordinary success, his answer wasn't about talent, luck, or even breakthrough ideas. Instead, he revealed a habit that seemed almost too simple to believe. For 12 consecutive years, without fail, he devoted the first 90 minutes of every morning to studying international markets, before his competitors had even stepped into their offices. While others responded to events as they unfolded, Yamaoka moved with clarity and foresight. While others waited for motivation, he relied on discipline. "My advantage wasn't intelligence," he once told shareholders. It was consistency, disciplined consistency, when everyone else allowed themselves excuses. Now ask yourself, are you allowing inconsistency to keep your potential locked away? Have you convinced yourself that you must first feel motivated before you take action, when in fact, it's disciplined action that often creates motivation? Think carefully. What kind of transformation could unfold if you made excellence your daily standard, instead of something you occasionally reach for? What becomes possible when your habits aren't dependent on how you feel, but anchored in who you're becoming? Here's what happens. When your daily disciplines become solid and non-negotiable, something begins to shift, not just in you, but in how the world perceives you. Suddenly, average people start to feel uneasy in your presence. Not because you speak louder, but because your consistency reveals something they've tried to ignore. Your commitment becomes a mirror reflecting their excuses. Your unwavering standards highlight their compromises. And the truth is, most people drift, tossed around by convenience, letting their energy be dictated by moods, distractions, or fleeting desires. In doing so, they sacrifice their potential on the altar of comfort. But those who choose discipline, day after day, build something different. They build momentum. They build mastery. But when you develop daily rituals that override temporary emotions, something powerful begins to take shape. You start training your mind to follow principles, not preferences. And that, more than anything, is where real transformation begins. Let's be clear, this level of discipline doesn't feel natural at first. In fact, it can feel downright uncomfortable. Why? Because the world we live in glorifies spontaneity, celebrates instant gratification, and rewards those who chase ease rather than excellence. Swimming against that current requires something deeper than desire. It takes conviction, a kind of internal strength that rises above cultural trends and emotional impulses. You're not just doing what's convenient, you're doing what's right again and again, regardless of how it feels in the moment. Every morning, without exception, you're presented with a simple but defining choice. Will you choose temporary comfort or commit to permanent greatness? It may seem like a small decision in the moment, to hit snooze, to skip your routine, to postpone your practice, but over time, those daily decisions compound. They become habits, and those habits ultimately form the bedrock of your identity. Can you make that commitment starting tomorrow? Can you establish 3 non-negotiable disciplines that will guide your morning with structure and strength? And more importantly, will you guard those rituals with the same intensity you'd use to protect something priceless? Because that's exactly what they are, the gateway to your future. Greatness never results from occasional effort. It's not built on emotional highs. It comes from consistent, principled action repeated with unwavering determination. Over time, that consistent action develops something unshakable, a mind that doesn't flinch, a presence that doesn't bend to weakness, a resolve that radiates strength. It's that very kind of mind, the one governed by discipline and not desire, that quietly begins to terrify the average. It's the mind that doesn't entertain excuses, the mind that holds the iron will of persistence. And here lies the great divider between dreamers and achievers. Everyone dreams, but only a few take those dreams and convert them into action with relentless force. What separates the two? An unbreakable persistence, the refusal to surrender, no matter the circumstance. Think of any major achievement throughout history. Behind its public glory lies a trail of rejection, failure, doubt, and defeat. Obstacles that would have broken a person driven only by mood. But those with extraordinary resilience, they kept moving forward. They endured what others couldn't. And that persistence, steady, unshaken, unwilling to quit, is what builds legacies and silences opposition. When people realize that nothing, not rejection, not failure, not even the passing of time, can halt your forward momentum, they begin to see you differently. You stop being just another person with ambition. You become an unstoppable force, and that presence carries weight. Why is this persistent mindset such a defining trait among extraordinary achievers? Because most people misread failure. They treat it as a full stop instead of what it truly is, a necessary step on the path to success. They give up too soon, often just moments before a breakthrough was about to occur. That's the tragic irony. Victory often hides just beyond the point where most people quit. But those who succeed on a grand scale, they've learned a different truth. They've internalized the idea that setbacks aren't roadblocks, they're information. They see failure not as a verdict, but as data. And that perspective grants them a kind of emotional immunity. While others spiral into discouragement, they recalibrate and continue forward with clarity. To the outside world, this kind of resilience seems almost mystical. It creates an aura of inevitability. Opponents feel it. Observers can't quite explain it. But beneath that quiet power lies a simple truth, unshakable persistence. So, how do you develop this kind of mental armor? It starts with reframing how you interpret failure. When things don't go your way, resist the urge to take it personally. Instead, ask a better question. What is this trying to teach me? Begin to view each setback not as rejection, but as valuable feedback, guidance pointing you toward a stronger approach. This process is what psychologists refer to as your explanatory style, the internal narrative you build after facing adversity. And it matters deeply. When you experience failure, don't let it define your identity. Don't globalize it. Isolate it. Instead of saying, I always fail, shift to, this situation didn't work out yet. Instead of thinking it's permanent, remind yourself it's temporary. This kind of cognitive restructuring doesn't just soften the blow. It transforms disappointment into a tool for growth. Consider Margaret Sullivan. She didn't just improve American healthcare. She revolutionized it. But before her success, she was turned down by 17 different hospital boards. 17 times she heard no. 17 times she faced closed doors. So what made her different? When asked how she sustained her persistence, Sullivan shared something remarkable. She kept a rejection journal. In it, she carefully documented every reason, every objection, every piece of criticism. To her, those rejections weren't personal attacks. They were insights. They showed her exactly where the resistance lived and how to address it. In her words, rejection wasn't failure. It was market research. That mindset, rational, resilient, unflinching, is what allowed her to press on when others would have folded. 2 decades later, Margaret Sullivan's approach had reshaped the very foundation of American healthcare. Her methodology was now embedded in over 40% of metropolitan hospitals nationwide. A quiet revolution sparked by the kind of persistence most would have abandoned after the 3rd rejection, let alone the 17th. Now pause and reflect. Are you allowing temporary setbacks to define your permanent identity? Have you confused resistance, which is normal, with proof that your goal is impossible? Could it be that the breakthrough you seek is waiting just past your current tolerance for disappointment? When your persistence becomes unbreakable, when your forward motion no longer depends on external validation, something fascinating happens. People begin to respond in one of 2 ways, either with deep admiration or with visible discomfort. Your refusal to accept average, your unwillingness to settle, silently confronts the compromises others have made within themselves. It's uncomfortable for them. Why? Because your consistency challenges their narrative. Most individuals, when they give up, construct elaborate justifications to protect their ego. They rewrite the story to suggest that success was never possible in the first place. It's not that they lack perseverance. They say it's that the dream was out of reach. But when you continue forward, facing the same obstacles yet refusing to back down, you dismantle that illusion. Your progress proves that success was in fact achievable, just not easy. And that truth stings. Let's be clear. Persistence doesn't mean mindlessly repeating what doesn't work. It doesn't mean banging your head against a locked door. True persistence is about staying absolutely committed to your destination, while being flexible, even ruthless, about adjusting the route to get there. You listen to feedback. You learn from rejection. You pivot with purpose. Think about Thomas Edison. He didn't just endure 10,000 failed attempts at inventing the light bulb. He used each one to refine his thinking, to eliminate what wouldn't work. Each so-called failure became a stepping stone, a lesson, a critical data point. His mind didn't weaken. It grew stronger, more precise, more resilient. Over time, that process forged a level of mental toughness that exceeded normal human limitation. So here's the question. Will you make the decision to endure your next 10 rejections without abandoning your vision? Can you shift from viewing disappointment as emotional devastation to treating it as strategic intelligence? Because the mind that truly terrifies through its strength is not the one that avoids obstacles, but the one that treats them as data, valuable, instructive, essential. This mindset, this unshakable approach, is what separates those who achieve modest success from those who reshape entire industries, shift nations, or leave permanent marks on the artistic and intellectual history of humanity. And one of the most overlooked advantages they possess: the ability to harness collective intelligence through powerful strategic alliances. Because even the most brilliant mind, on its own, faces one unchangeable constraint: perspective limitation. No individual, regardless of raw intellect or genius, can foresee every possibility, recognize every hidden opportunity, or navigate every obstacle alone. Isolated thinking, no matter how brilliant, eventually hits a wall. Those who understand this limitation don't resist it, they leverage it. Instead of striving to do everything themselves, they strategically unite complementary minds, building partnerships that don't just add value, they multiply it. This ability to orchestrate mental synergy creates results that go far beyond linear improvement. It's not about 1 + 1 = 2. It's about 1 + 1 = 10. And for conventional thinkers, that kind of power is deeply unsettling. It defies logic as they understand it. But why does this principle, collaborative intelligence, create such a massive advantage? Because when minds align, not just functionally but purposefully, something extraordinary emerges. It becomes more than teamwork. It becomes a kind of shared intelligence, a collective force that transcends what any one person could achieve alone. The combined insights, experience, and creativity of aligned minds create breakthroughs that feel almost metaphysical. It's intelligence elevated through unity. If you study any major revolutionary achievement, whether in science, technology, art, or social change, you'll find a common thread. Rarely is the innovation the product of a lone genius. More often, it's the outcome of diverse perspectives coming together with clarity of purpose. That friction between different worldviews, when managed well, ignites creative combustion. Those who master this principle begin to function with an expanded mind. Their mental capacity is no longer limited to their own knowledge or view of the world. They effectively multiply their strength by surrounding themselves with those who think differently and think brilliantly. Meanwhile, their competitors remain trapped by the limitations of solitary thought. So how can you implement this powerful shift in your own life? Begin with honesty. Take a clear inventory of your intellectual strengths, what you do well, and pair that with your weaknesses. What areas consistently slow you down? What do you need perspective, skill, or experience you don't currently possess? Once identified, seek out people who complement your cognitive blind spots. Look for those whose strengths fill in your gaps, and whose growth will also benefit from what you offer. But simply having access to talented individuals isn't enough. Collaboration must go deeper. You must establish operational harmony, a shared purpose, mutual respect, and a disciplined system for working together. Without these, even the brightest minds will pull in different directions. One powerful way to build this structure: schedule regular mastermind sessions. These aren't casual conversations. They are purpose-driven meetings with defined goals and protocols that keep discussion on track and energy-focused. Consider Alexander Westbrook, who transformed Australia's struggling agricultural sector, not through solo invention, but through structured, intentional collaboration. Instead of working alone, he assembled monthly symposiums that brought together meteorologists, soil scientists, machinery engineers, distribution experts, and economic forecasters. Every voice had value. Every insight shaped the next move. Each participant in Westbrook's mastermind sessions viewed the same agricultural challenges, but through entirely different perceptual frameworks. What one saw as a technical limitation, another saw as a climate pattern. What seemed like an economic barrier to one expert became a design opportunity for another. Westbrook later explained that the most effective solutions didn't emerge from isolated brilliance. They were born from the collision of diverse perspectives. From friction came clarity. From contrast came innovation. Within just 5 years, his collaborative methodology achieved something few thought possible: a 73% increase in national production yields, even during the harshest drought cycle in recorded history. It wasn't magic, it was method. Now ask yourself, are you currently trying to reach ambitious goals through isolated thinking? Have you fallen into the common trap of mistaking independence for strength, when in fact, interdependence may be the true catalyst for exponential growth? What breakthroughs might remain hidden? Not because they don't exist, but because your current perspective simply can't see them. When you begin to harness the true power of mastermind dynamics, something unexpected happens. You accelerate. Problems that once stalled progress now unravel quickly, and the world begins to notice. Your conventional competitors, locked into linear thinking, watch your rapid progress with increasing discomfort. They see your team identifying solutions with startling efficiency, while they remain entangled in limited viewpoints and slow-moving processes. Why the difference? Because most people operate with an unconscious resistance to external input. Their ego interprets collaboration as a weakness, as if seeking support somehow undermines their capability. But those who truly understand elite performance know this. Collaboration isn't surrender, it's strategic amplification. Your willingness to synthesize diverse perspectives becomes a powerful differentiator. It creates a kind of operational velocity that, to outsiders, feels almost otherworldly. But it's not supernatural, it's structural. It's the byproduct of intelligent systems, disciplined thinking, and mutual respect. To implement a truly effective mastermind, you must be selective. Choose individuals not only for their intellectual excellence, but also for their genuine commitment to mutual success. Skill without character creates conflict. Brilliance without humility creates breakdown. You need both. Avoid participants who bring ego-driven tension. Instead, look for those who ignite creative energy, people who challenge ideas, not egos. And once the team is assembled, establish clear operational principles, balanced contribution, respectful dialogue, focused outcomes, and systematic application of insights. Because the mastermind is not a social gathering. It's not casual brainstorming. It is a strategic alliance, a force designed to unlock levels of achievement that no individual could reach alone. Now, take a moment to reflect. Can you identify 3 individuals whose mental strengths directly complement your own limitations? Not just people you admire, but those whose thinking challenges yours, fills the gaps, and expands what's possible. Once identified, will you take the lead in forming a mastermind, one built on clear purpose, a structured process, and shared advantage? Because the mind that commands deep respect, the mind that others find quietly intimidating, is not the one that knows everything. It's the one that has transcended personal limits by forging strategic intellectual alliances. That is the mind truly capable of reshaping the world. But there's another defining trait shared by extraordinary individuals, one that might surprise you. It's not just intellect or work ethic. It's their relationship with fear. Think about it. What truly separates those who achieve greatness from those who merely dream about it? Is it that the great ones never feel fear? Absolutely not. Those who perform at the highest level, who innovate, build, lead, and inspire, experience fear just as intensely as everyone else. But there's one crucial difference. They move toward it, not away from it. They walk straight into discomfort. And that choice, repeated again and again, begins to build something rare, a kind of psychological immunity that feels almost otherworldly to those still ruled by hesitation. So why does this approach offer such a profound advantage? Because fear, at its core, is simply unmastered territory. It's psychological terrain your mind hasn't yet mapped through direct experience. Every single skill you now possess, every strength you rely on, once began as something uncomfortable, unfamiliar, even frightening. You mastered it through repetition, through exposure, through action. Those who grow the fastest, who evolve into new versions of themselves, are not the ones who wait for courage to show up. They're the ones who expand their comfort zones deliberately by choosing discomfort again and again, while others remain trapped inside walls they unknowingly built. These individuals are out expanding their frontier. And here's what happens next. When someone consistently moves toward challenge, when they lean into what makes most people retreat, they begin to radiate something rare. A presence, a quiet power that unsettles those still seeking safety. Because that presence feels like fearlessness, even though it isn't. So how do you implement this kind of transformation in your own life? It begins with clarity. Start by identifying your current fear inventory. What situations, tasks, or conversations make you uncomfortable? What challenges have you been putting off? Not because you're unqualified, but because they make you uneasy. That inventory becomes your roadmap, your training ground, The next evolution of you begins not in your comfort zone, but just beyond it. Now that you've identified the fears that hold you back, it's time to confront them with purpose. Begin by ranking these fears, from those that generate moderate discomfort to those that evoke your deepest resistance. This hierarchy becomes your roadmap. Next, create a progressive exposure protocol, a clear, step-by-step plan. Start with manageable challenges, the kind that make your heart race just a little. Then, as confidence builds, systematically move toward higher resistance activities. The key isn't to overwhelm yourself, but to stretch deliberately and consistently. Make this a non-negotiable habit. Complete one fear-inducing action every single day. It doesn't have to be monumental. What matters isn't the outcome, but the act itself. Because the real transformation comes from doing, not winning. As you begin this journey, document your experiences. Pay attention to the pattern. You'll likely notice a striking theme: how the anticipatory anxiety leading up to the action almost always exceeds the actual discomfort during execution. This recognition alone begins to unravel fear's grip. Consider Victoria Peton. Today, she's celebrated as the visionary who revolutionized British telecommunications. But her beginnings were far from fearless. She once struggled with crippling social anxiety, barely able to speak in meetings, let alone lead them. So how did she rise from a quiet back-office analyst to an industry pioneer? Peton openly shared her secret, a system she called her discomfort curriculum. Every Thursday afternoon, for 5 consecutive years, she scheduled the activity that terrified her most. No exceptions. Public presentations, hard negotiations, high-stakes interviews. She tackled them methodically, one by one. That weekly ritual rewired her emotional response to fear. Over time, it didn't just increase her capacity, it transformed it. Her expanding comfort zone enabled her to command boardrooms and lead national initiatives. And those who once dismissed her quiet presence soon found her leadership unshakably intimidating. So ask yourself, are you currently avoiding experiences essential for your personal growth? Have you confused discomfort with danger? Could it be that what you fear most is not meant to harm you, but to unlock a dormant capability you haven't yet accessed? Because something fascinating happens when you consistently move toward fear instead of running from it. The psychological resistance that once felt immovable, it begins to dissolve through repeated exposure. Every act of courageous discomfort reconditions your brain's threat response. You prove to yourself again and again that you can survive, even thrive, through the discomfort. Most people build complex avoidance systems to protect their fragile sense of peace. But in doing so, they sacrifice their long-term power for short-term ease. Your decision to trade temporary comfort for long-term expansion initiates a cycle of accelerated growth. And yes, it often unsettles those around you because it challenges their own avoidance. Remember this truth: courage doesn't come from the absence of emotion. It comes from action in spite of it. True psychological strength doesn't emerge by dodging your triggers. It's built step by step, through systematic desensitization, through deliberate exposure, and through a daily choice to lean into the very thing you once feared most. Every time you navigate a fear-inducing experience, you're doing more than just overcoming discomfort. You're creating neurological evidence. Each action becomes proof that you can endure, adapt, and grow. And over time, this growing body of evidence doesn't just change your mindset, it begins to transform your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who avoids challenges. Instead, you become someone who is energized by them, even drawn to them. Resistance doesn't repel you, it calls you forward. So now the question becomes, will you commit to identifying 3 specific fears that are currently limiting your potential? Not vague discomforts, but precise fears you can confront. Can you design a progressive exposure protocol that challenges each one systematically, building momentum as you move forward? Because the mind that others find quietly intimidating, the mind that commands respect without saying much, is the one that sees fear not as a stop sign, but as an invitation. An invitation to advance, an opportunity to grow, a signal that this is exactly where your next level begins. And that kind of mind does something else remarkable. It learns to wield not just strength, but silence. In a world overwhelmed by noise, chatter, and constant commentary, there's something deeply powerful, almost disruptive, about someone who chooses intentional silence. This is a quality shared by those who command genuine respect, not just fleeting attention. So what truly separates people who influence others at the highest level from those who simply demand to be heard? It's not louder voices or clever phrases. It's not even charisma or eloquence. At the foundation lies something far more rare, the disciplined power of silence. That silent space between thoughts, that moment before speaking, that pause where ego disappears and clarity rises. In those moments, real wisdom takes shape and true strength reveals itself. Why does this restraint hold such power? Because in a culture obsessed with expression, those who master selective silence develop a level of observational intelligence that feels almost uncanny. While others are quick to offer half-formed opinions or reactive replies, the strategically silent individual watches. They listen, they process, they notice details others miss. They hear patterns in noise. And when they speak, it matters. Their words cut through distraction because they emerge not from impulse, but from deliberate thought. This creates a presence that is both grounded and commanding. A presence where silence alone can shift a room. And when words are finally spoken, they carry a weight that feels undeniable. So, how do you begin cultivating this rare discipline of silence? Start with a single, powerful rule. Never speak simply to fill the silence. Let stillness become part of your strength. Let your restraint sharpen your perception. Because in a world that's always talking, the one who listens best and speaks last often holds the most power. When a conversation comes to a pause, resist the urge, so deeply ingrained by modern culture, to immediately fill that silence with sound. Instead, let that space remain open. Get comfortable within the quiet. Recognize it not as a void to escape, but as a powerful opportunity to observe more deeply, to read between the lines, and to listen with intention. From this place of presence, begin to develop your personal response protocol, a conscious practice of filtering your speech through reflection before expression. Before you speak, pause and ask yourself, does this truly add value? Have I considered all relevant perspectives? What might I learn if I simply listen a bit longer? This deliberate filter transforms ordinary communication into a strategic advantage. No longer driven by the need to react, you become someone who contributes with weight, someone whose words are shaped by wisdom, not by impulse. Consider the legacy of Raji Chandrasekhar, a quiet force in international diplomacy. While negotiating complex trade agreements between rival Asian nations, Chandra became known for his legendary contemplative pause. After opposing delegates would finish speaking, he would often remain silent for 45 seconds. He wouldn't fidget. He wouldn't interrupt. He would simply sit, composed, and say nothing. To most, this pause felt unbearably long, but what it created was extraordinary. A colleague later revealed what consistently happened during those moments. The silence made adversaries deeply uncomfortable. That discomfort would often compel them to start speaking again, revealing crucial insights or concessions they originally planned to withhold. What began as silence became leverage. His patience became power, and those non-negotiable terms, they quietly started shifting in his favor. Now, reflect on your own communication habits. Are you unintentionally weakening your influence by speaking too quickly, too often? Have you confused the volume of your words with the actual impact of your message? What unseen advantages might reveal themselves if you relinquish the compulsive need to fill every conversational gap? Because when your relationship with silence becomes strategic instead of uncomfortable, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. People start to notice. They begin to associate your voice with weight, with intentionality, with something worth listening to. Even if they can't explain it, they sense that your words come from a deeper place. One of thoughtful reflection, not emotional reactivity. And in contrast, most people speak the moment thought forms. No delay, no refinement, just immediate output, driven by the fear of silence and the impulse to be heard. But those who pause, who consider, who wait just a moment longer, they become the ones who influence quietly, but impact profoundly. Your deliberate restraint in conversation creates something rare. Communication rooted not in emotional reaction, but in well-rounded perspective. This kind of speech carries a distinct weight. It generates a level of gravitas that conventional, impulsive communicators often find quietly intimidating. But don't misunderstand. Strategic silence is not about withdrawal. It's not about becoming quiet for the sake of silence. It's about learning the difference between noise and value. The goal is not to be uncommunicative. The goal is to become extraordinarily intentional. To speak only when your words have the power to move, clarify, or elevate. Take a closer look at those rare individuals whose words carry undeniable weight. You'll find a consistent trait. They don't speak from urgency. They speak from insight. Their communication is not reactive, but refined. Their restraint doesn't reflect hesitation. It creates mental space where wisdom can flourish and where impulsive commentary simply doesn't survive. So now the challenge is yours. Will you commit to practicing strategic silence in your next 3 meaningful conversations? Will you resist the cultural pressure that insists constant expression is necessary to be seen or heard? Because the mind that others find quietly powerful is not the one driven by neurotic compulsion to fill space. It's the one that speaks from strategic intention. Every word chosen, every sentence purposeful, nothing wasted, nothing shallow. And now, as we shift from communication to execution, another trait of extraordinary achievement emerges, one that may be even more transformative. It's the discipline of singular focus. Across history, there's a clear divide between those who achieve monumental breakthroughs and those who stay endlessly busy but accomplish little. What makes the difference? Their relationship with attention. Think about the leaders who reshape industries, the inventors who redefine what's possible, the experts who master incredibly complex domains. Is their success driven by raw intelligence alone? By longer hours? By access to better tools? While all of those factors may play a role, they're not the foundation. Beneath all of that lies something deeper, something far more powerful, the ability to sustain deep, uninterrupted focus on one clear objective, without distraction, without dilution. It is this quiet force, this sustained attention, that separates those who merely dabble from those who transform. This mental discipline, the ability to sustain deep, singular focus, creates momentum that scattered minds simply cannot comprehend. They observe the results, the clarity, the speed, and often feel mystified. Why? Because while they're constantly busy juggling dozens of tasks, their energy is diffused. Progress is shallow. Nothing truly takes root. But those who practice concentrated attention gain something far more valuable: compounding progress. And this is where the true advantage begins. Why does this focused approach lead to such exceptional outcomes? Because attention is the ultimate non-renewable resource. Once spent, you can't get it back. And where your focus flows, results inevitably follow. It's not about working harder. It's about directing your effort like a laser rather than a flashlight. Those who scatter their mental energy across endless projects may feel productive, but the truth is they advance each one only minimally. Meanwhile, those channeling the same amount of energy toward one key objective gain momentum, clarity, and depth. Over time, that focus leads to breakthroughs, while others remain stuck in cycles of shallow progress. When someone witnesses an individual whose attention is utterly unshakable, who remains undistracted in a world of noise, it creates a presence that's hard to ignore. There's something intimidating about that kind of intensity. It signals mastery in motion. But how do you develop this kind of concentrated mental power? It starts with a simple recognition. Multitasking is a myth. It may feel efficient, but in reality, it's the systematic destruction of your effectiveness. Neurological research confirms it. Constant task switching not only reduces productivity, but creates an illusion of progress. You feel busy, but you're spinning in place. Instead, implement a time-blocking methodology. Choose your most important objective and dedicate uninterrupted blocks of time to it. No notifications, no emails, no multitasking. Begin with 30-minute sessions of focused work and gradually build your stamina toward 90-minute deep work blocks. During these periods, adopt an almost sacred intolerance for interruption. Treat your attention like a protected resource, your most valuable currency, and defend it with intention. Take inspiration from Eliza Thornton, a pioneer who revolutionized American architectural design. She entered the field with little formal education, but her rise to the top was anything but accidental. When asked how she advanced from a drafting assistant to an industry innovator, Thornton revealed her secret, a system she called sacred hours. For 30 years, without exception, she guarded the hours between 5 o'clock and 9 a.m. No calls, no meetings, no distractions. Those 4 hours were non-negotiable. I'm unavailable during those hours, she explained. Not because I'm busy, but because I'm building. And while her competitors scattered their attention across inboxes, meetings, and endless interruptions, she funneled 4 hours of uninterrupted concentration into deliberate, focused mastery. That daily practice didn't just shape her career. It defined her legacy. Over time, Eliza Thornton's sacred hours of deep work gave rise to architectural breakthroughs that didn't just gain recognition. They redefined industry standards. Her legacy wasn't built on noise or scattered effort, but on daily, focused craftsmanship. And the question now is, are you unintentionally diluting your potential by living in a state of chronic attention fragmentation? Have you confused being perpetually busy with actually being productive? Do you find yourself in motion all day, but making little meaningful progress? What kind of extraordinary development could unfold if you took all that scattered mental energy and channeled it into one concentrated direction? Because here's the truth. When your ability to focus becomes exceptional, something remarkable begins to happen. You begin to compress time. What takes most people months to complete, you start accomplishing in weeks, sometimes even days. And to outsiders, this speed seems almost supernatural. But it's not magic. It's mastery. Most individuals operate in a constant reactive loop, bouncing from emails to meetings to tasks, rarely giving full attention to any of it. They confuse motion with progress, staying busy without moving forward. But when you lock in, when your concentration becomes relentless, you generate momentum. That kind of focused persistence turns overwhelming challenges into conquered milestones. One by one, what was once too difficult becomes your foundation. Here's the principle that matters most. Attention management now exceeds time management in its importance. You can't control time, but you can absolutely control where your mind goes and for how long it stays there. So protect your cognitive resources the way you'd protect a bank account filled with your life savings. Be ruthless with your boundaries. Turn off what doesn't serve your focus. Design your environment so that deep attention becomes the default, not the exception. See interruptions for what they really are, not just minor inconveniences, but catastrophic thefts of productivity. Every time your concentration is broken, you don't just lose a few seconds. You lose the mental momentum it took minutes to build. Set clear, immovable boundaries around your most valuable internal asset, your capacity for sustained, undivided attention on what truly matters. Because in the end, that discipline, that ability to protect and direct your focus, is what separates extraordinary producers from those who are merely perpetually busy. So now ask yourself, can you clearly identify the single most significant objective in your life right now? One that deserves your full, undivided attention? Not a vague intention, but a goal so meaningful it demands the best of you. And once identified, will you protect time for it with the same intensity that others protect their most valuable possessions? Will you establish sacred time blocks, guarded with near-religious devotion, immune to interruption, distraction, and compromise? Because the mind that truly intimidates through its strength is the one that directs its energy with laser-like precision. It's the mind that stays fixed on a singular, worthy pursuit while the rest of the world scatters their potential across an endless stream of noise. And once focus is established, there's another element that distinguishes high achievers, one that operates beneath the surface. The art of strategic visualization. This practice, though often overlooked, sets apart those who consistently bring visions to life from those who only dream without ever realizing them. It's not just about effort or hustle. It's not simply strategy, talent, or access to more resources. While all of these help, there's something more foundational. It's their relationship with mental imagery, specifically their disciplined use of systematic visualization, so vivid, so detailed, that it begins to program the subconscious mind for achievement. These individuals don't just wish for results. They mentally rehearse them with such clarity that their mind begins to accept success as inevitable. Why is this practice so powerful? Because the subconscious mind, your internal operating system, doesn't distinguish between deeply imagined experience and lived reality. When visualization is practiced with intention and precision, it becomes mental programming. You begin to activate neurological pathways as if the goal has already been achieved. This isn't fantasy, it's conditioning. And when others observe someone pursuing their ambitions with a level of certainty that seems unshakable, as if they've already tasted success, it creates a presence that's both magnetic and deeply unsettling. That kind of confidence isn't loud. It's grounded, quiet, inevitable. So how do you start this process? How do you implement this form of internal mastery? Begin by developing daily visualization protocols. Structured time each day, even just a few minutes, where you vividly imagine your desired outcome. Not in vague terms, but in detail, the environment, the emotions, the sounds, the outcomes. You aren't just thinking positive. You're rehearsing your future reality with such clarity that your subconscious begins to believe it's already yours. To activate this internal programming, commit to a daily practice of at least 20 minutes of focused mental rehearsal. Not while multitasking, not while distracted, but in a quiet, uninterrupted state. Ideally, this should be done during the theta wave state, the deeply relaxed mental frequency your brain naturally enters right after waking and just before sleep. During these sessions, create a multi-sensory simulation of your desired achievement. Don't just imagine what it looks like. Engage all your senses. Hear the sounds. Feel the texture of the environment. Connect with the emotional response you expect to experience. Imagine the temperature in the room, the expressions on faces around you, the physical sensations in your body as you succeed. And most importantly, don't see this scene from the outside. Visualize it from a first-person perspective. See it through your own eyes, as if it's happening right now. Consider the story of Sébastien Renaud, the athlete who redefined French competitive sports. Renaud didn't possess the ideal physique. In fact, most experts dismissed his chances at elite performance. Yet he rose to dominate national athletics against all odds. When asked how he achieved what others believed was physically impossible, Renaud revealed his technique, a system he called reality projection. For 3 years, he explained, before I ever stood on a podium, I lived my victories in my mind, twice a day, without fail. 15 minutes in the morning upon waking. 15 minutes before sleep. No exceptions. He immersed himself so deeply in these mental rehearsals that his nervous system couldn't distinguish between imagination and actual experience. And the result? His body followed. His performance evolved. Competitors didn't just lose to him. They were startled by what seemed like an unnatural precision and readiness. Now ask yourself, are you approaching your goals through only intellectual planning? Writing to-do lists, setting deadlines, crafting strategies? Or have you taken the next step? Neurological conditioning that programs your subconscious to work toward those goals even when your conscious mind is at rest? Have you mistaken conceptual understanding for embodied belief? What level of achievement becomes possible when your entire nervous system is aligned through repeated visualization toward a singular, defined outcome? Because when your mental imagery becomes systematic and deliberate, something remarkable begins to unfold. Your subconscious mind, always observing, begins to reorganize your internal resources around that vision. Opportunities once invisible begin to reveal themselves. Patterns emerge. People, ideas, and circumstances seem to align with a kind of unexpected synchronicity. Most individuals rely solely on conscious planning, using just a tiny fraction of their neurological capacity. But when you discipline yourself to visualize deeply and consistently, you activate something far greater: the pattern recognition, emotional endurance, and problem-solving power of your subconscious. And that's when acceleration begins, the kind that others can't quite explain. As you refine your visualization practice, remember this: effective mental imagery is not just about detail, it's about emotion. It's not enough to see your future clearly. You must also feel it deeply. The subconscious mind doesn't respond to cold, intellectual concepts. It responds to experiences charged with genuine emotion, with sensation, belief, and certainty. So as you visualize, infuse your mental rehearsals with gratitude for what's coming, excitement as if it were happening now, and unshakable certainty that it will come to pass. This emotional intensity is what unlocks the power of subconscious programming. But don't stop there. Go beyond the image of achievement. Visualize the character traits you'll embody, the decisions you'll make, the disciplines you'll uphold along the way. See yourself showing up on difficult days. Feel the focus, the consistency, the small actions that lead to the big win. Because this level of immersive rehearsal doesn't just strengthen belief, it begins to rewire your identity. It shifts your internal reference point from uncertainty to inevitability. And when that shift occurs, even the most challenging goals begin to feel unavoidable. Now ask yourself, will you commit, starting tomorrow morning, to establishing a daily visualization protocol? Can you devote just 20 minutes a day to programming your subconscious mind, to tuning your internal compass so precisely that the outcome starts moving toward you? Because the mind that others quietly fear, the one that radiates quiet power, is not simply intelligent or talented. It's the mind that experiences its future in such vivid, emotional clarity that the world has no choice but to catch up. And from this clarity, we turn to something equally transformative: the power of strategic discomfort. Throughout history, one defining difference has separated those who grow continuously from those who rise quickly and then plateau. That difference is not just found in intelligence, opportunity, or method. It's found in their relationship with discomfort. What allows some people to evolve for decades while others peak early and fade? It's not more talent. It's not always better resources. It's something deeper, a willingness to deliberately seek discomfort, to step into the unknown, to pursue what feels difficult, even risky, again and again. This counterintuitive habit becomes a powerful catalyst. It fuels developmental velocity, an internal acceleration that conventional achievers can't quite understand. While others avoid challenge and protect comfort, these individuals pursue pressure, and in doing so, they stretch. But why does this approach yield such profound growth? Because true development only happens at the edge of capability, in that narrow, unstable space where comfort ends and challenge begins. It's in that space, and that space alone, where you build new strength, where you grow beyond what you thought possible. Those who continually place themselves in this uncomfortable intersection of effort and uncertainty are the ones who expand their potential year after year. Meanwhile, those who prioritize ease over challenge, who treat comfort as the goal, inevitably face decline masked as stability. When someone witnesses an individual who actively seeks out difficulty rather than avoiding it, it creates a presence that feels different. It's not loud or boastful, but it carries an undeniable weight. That person radiates relentless evolutionary momentum, and it's deeply unsettling to those anchored in comfort. So how can you implement this powerful framework of growth acceleration in your own life? Start with an honest inventory of your current comfort zone. Look at your daily activities, your routine responsibilities, the challenges you face. Are you navigating them with ease? Have they become predictable, manageable, without much effort or strain? If so, it's time to shift. The next step is to design a deliberate discomfort protocol, a personal system in which you consistently select tasks or experiences that push you just beyond your current capability. Not recklessly, not randomly, but intentionally calibrated so that they stretch you enough to require adaptation without triggering unnecessary overwhelm. This is your optimal growth zone, where progress is accelerated because your mind and body are forced to evolve. And here's a fundamental rule to remember. If you're not regularly placing yourself in situations that stretch you beyond what's comfortable, then you've stopped growing in any meaningful way. Consider the story of Margaret Donaldson, who revolutionized international journalism. At the start of her career, she battled a severe speech impediment, one so intense that she could barely speak in public. Yet years later, she became a commanding on-air presence whose clarity and power inspired a generation of broadcasters. What fueled that transformation? Donaldson shared the system behind her evolution, her calibrated challenge protocol. Every Monday morning, she would send her editor a request for a new assignment. Not something just slightly difficult, but something that made her feel uneasy. Each assignment required skills she had not yet mastered, but that she believed she could develop. I didn't want comfortable, she explained. I asked for challenges that made me nervous but excited. Over time, those self-imposed discomforts didn't break her. They built her. They shaped her voice, her message, and her confidence, until her peers found her communication skills almost unnaturally precise. Now reflect for a moment. Are you choosing comfortable competence over uncomfortable growth? Have you mistaken a performance plateau for achievement, when in reality, it might be a warning sign that your development has stalled? What untapped potential might still be lying dormant, hidden just behind your instinct to avoid strategic discomfort? Because when your relationship with challenge shifts, when it becomes proactive instead of reactive, something truly remarkable happens. Your development accelerates beyond what most consider possible. And those still clinging to comfort, they'll look at your pace and wonder how it's even real. That's what happens when you make discomfort your ally, not your enemy. That's what creates growth that looks, at least from the outside, almost supernatural. Most people instinctively design their professional and personal lives around what they already know how to do. They build systems, routines, and environments that reinforce existing capabilities, not to grow, but to stay safe. Without realizing it, they create a buffer between themselves and the very discomfort that would trigger transformation. But the path to lasting development doesn't lie in protecting comfort. It lies in the deliberate pursuit of calibrated challenge, in choosing environments, tasks, and goals that require adaptation, effort, and growth. And when approached methodically, this process transforms raw potential into realized capability, refined through the stress, recovery cycle that drives lasting evolution. Here's the distinction that matters. Strategic discomfort is not masochistic struggle. You're not seeking pain for its own sake. The goal isn't hardship. It's precisely targeted challenge, selected to provoke a specific adaptation aligned with your vision of growth. This is why the world's most exceptional performers don't just grow for a season. They grow for decades. Study them closely and you'll see the pattern. They intentionally choose responsibilities, roles, and environments that demand they become more. They never stay long in spaces where they can coast. Instead, they engineer their lives to stretch them again and again. Now the challenge turns to you. Will you commit to identifying 3 comfort zones, areas where you've settled into competence at the expense of growth? Can you design and implement strategic discomfort protocols that push each of those areas forward with consistency? Because the mind that others quietly fear, the mind that radiates quiet strength, is not the one that avoids difficulty. It's the one that walks toward challenge, recognizing discomfort not as a warning sign, but as a call to rise. And just beyond this lies something equally powerful: the alchemy of extreme responsibility. This is the shift that separates those who reshape their world from those who remain shaped by it. Those who transform their circumstances rather than constantly reacting to them. The distinction? It lies in their relationship with responsibility. What makes one person thrive while another, equally talented, constantly explains why success is not possible right now? Is it greater skill? Better timing? More support? Maybe. But beneath all of that is something more foundational, something unshakable. A mindset that embraces full ownership of outcomes, regardless of conditions. What truly sets high-impact individuals apart is their capacity to assume total responsibility for outcomes, regardless of external circumstances. They don't wait for ideal conditions. They don't point fingers. They take ownership completely. And this mindset of psychological ownership creates a level of intensity in problem solving that those accustomed to making excuses often find deeply unsettling. But why does this approach, claiming full responsibility, lead to such a powerful advantage? Because your sphere of influence expands in direct proportion to the responsibility you're willing to claim. The more responsibility you accept, the more power you gain over the outcome. It's a shift from passivity to agency, from being affected to becoming the cause. Those who blame external forces, market conditions, other people, bad timing, unwittingly position themselves as helpless bystanders, shaped by forces beyond their control. In contrast, those who embrace full responsibility, whether or not the circumstances were within their control, become causative agents. They don't wait for change. They create it. And when someone witnesses an individual who refuses to play the victim, even in the face of real, legitimate obstacles, it creates a presence that's hard to ignore. That kind of unstoppable resourcefulness is unnerving to those who have built their lives around excuses. So how do you develop this level of ownership in your own life? It begins with a simple but powerful rule. Eliminate the word because from your vocabulary when discussing undesired results. Why? Because the word because often invites justification. I failed because it didn't work out because, but when you stop justifying and start owning, your brain stops seeking reasons and starts seeking solutions. This linguistic pattern shift may seem small, but it causes a cognitive restructuring. It trains your mind to move away from rationalizing what went wrong and instead toward resolving what comes next. Next, adopt what can be called the extreme responsibility framework. When faced with any setback or challenge, immediately ask yourself, how did I create this situation, either through action or inaction? Not in a self-blaming way, but as a way of activating your power. This question shifts your thinking. It moves your energy away from blame toward ownership and into constructive problem-solving mode. Consider the example of Harrison Montgomery, who reshaped American manufacturing. He inherited operations during one of the most volatile periods in the industry's history, marked by material shortages, labor disputes, and economic uncertainty. Yet despite those challenges, he didn't retreat or make excuses. Instead, he leaned into full ownership of the outcome. And through that mindset, he initiated solutions that others believed impossible under the same conditions. When asked how he achieved extraordinary results amid catastrophic industry conditions, Harrison Montgomery shared the core of his success, his absolute ownership methodology. While competitors were locked in endless daily meetings, documenting every reason why production targets were impossible, Montgomery and his team operated under a radically different principle. Assumed complete responsibility regardless of external circumstances, he explained. This unwavering commitment forced his team to seek innovative solutions, approaches that remained invisible to organizations trapped in excuse-making. By fully owning outcomes, Montgomery's group unlocked manufacturing breakthroughs that left competitors genuinely mystified. Now reflect for a moment. Are you currently limiting your own potential by constructing elaborate justifications? Have you mistaken explanation for achievement, spending more time rationalizing setbacks than overcoming them? What extraordinary solutions lie just beyond your current attributional barriers, waiting to be discovered? Because when your relationship with responsibility shifts from conditional to total ownership, something remarkable unfolds. Your capacity for creative problem-solving expands beyond conventional limits. Solutions emerge, not from luck or external aid, but from the sheer force of ownership and the necessity it creates. Most people instinctively protect their self-image by deflecting responsibility. They build increasingly sophisticated narratives to justify underperformance, preserving comfort at the cost of progress. But your choice to embrace absolute ownership removes this psychological escape hatch. It demands innovative thinking because there's no place left to hide. There's no room for blame, only room for solutions. It's important to remember, extreme responsibility is not the same as self-blame. It's not about harsh self-criticism or punishment. Instead, it's a strategic positioning, a conscious decision to place yourself where you can be most effective and empowered. By doing so, you cultivate a mindset of maximum accountability and focused action, one that fuels extraordinary results and propels you beyond the limits that hold most others back. By embracing total ownership, you shift from being a helpless reactor to an empowered creator of your reality. This psychological transformation is what separates the extraordinary performers from the talented underachievers in every field of human endeavor. So ask yourself, will you commit to removing excuses from your behavior for the next 7 days? Can you consistently apply the extreme responsibility framework, no matter the circumstances? And do you have the courage to confront the deepest truths within yourself, where your legitimacy as a creator is born? Because the mind that others quietly fear, the one that commands respect through sheer strength, is exactly the mind that assumes total responsibility, embracing obstacles rather than shrinking from them. Now, let's explore another profound discipline, the discipline of delayed gratification. Throughout history, something fundamental separates those who scale extraordinary heights from those who remain perpetually average. It's not always superior intelligence. It's not simply access to greater resources or enhanced opportunities. While these factors matter, the foundation is something deeper, the capacity to systematically sacrifice immediate pleasure in exchange for greater future rewards. Consider the difference between someone who accumulates exceptional results consistently over decades and someone equally talented who produces only modest, adequate outcomes. What's the key? It's the willingness to delay gratification. This behavioral discipline fosters compound growth, results that accumulate exponentially over time. For those who are fixated on immediate comfort, progress tends to be slow, linear at best. They settle for small gains because they avoid discomfort. In contrast, those who accept temporary discomfort with strategic intent unlock a different trajectory. Their progress curves upward, accelerating, driven by the compounding effects of consistent sacrifice. Why does this approach create such a profound advantage? Because life, time and again, rewards those who can trade short-term satisfaction for long-term success. Those who can push through the discomfort of delayed reward often experience growth and achievement that seem baffling to those who prioritize the present moment. When someone witnesses an individual who consistently chooses difficult short-term sacrifice over easy, immediate pleasure, it creates a presence that feels almost superhuman. That kind of self-regulation, steady and unwavering, is deeply intimidating to observers precisely because it defies common patterns of impulse and gratification. So how does one develop this powerful, future-oriented discipline? Start by taking an honest look at your current gratification response patterns. Where do you habitually allow immediate comfort to outweigh the pursuit of far superior, long-term outcomes? What moments repeatedly pull you toward convenience rather than strategic sacrifice? Once you identify those tendencies, implement a systematic interruption between impulse and action whenever you face significant decisions. Create a mandatory pause, a consideration period that scales with the importance of the choice. During this pause, practice discipline analysis, evaluating the future impact of your decision. Compare the immediate consequences against the delayed rewards, not just in the next few weeks or months, but across 1 year, 5-year, and even 10-year horizons. This extended perspective shifts your focus from momentary satisfaction to strategic growth. Take inspiration from Sako Yamamoto, who transformed Japanese technological development despite starting with resources investors deemed too limited for meaningful progress. When asked about her remarkable ascent, Yamamoto revealed what she called her sequential satisfaction methodology. While her competitors funneled their initial capital into flashy, visible signs of success, impressive facilities, large staffs, aggressive public relations campaigns, she took a different path. We implemented a 5-year reinvestment mandate, she explained. Every available resource was directed toward fundamental research, not immediate validation or public acclaim. That disciplined practice of deferred gratification ultimately led to technological breakthroughs considered impossible by industry experts, especially given her modest initial capitalization. Now ask yourself, are you currently sacrificing superior long-term outcomes for fleeting psychological comfort? Have you mistaken temporary satisfaction for genuine achievement? What extraordinary growth could be waiting just beyond your willingness to strategically sacrifice present pleasure for future success? Because when your capacity for delayed gratification strengthens, your entire trajectory begins to change. As your capacity for delayed gratification becomes truly exceptional, something remarkable unfolds. You begin to accomplish feats that others consider impossible, achievements powered by the almost magical force of compound returns. The results you generate often appear mystifying to those focused solely on immediate outcomes. Most people organize their choices around instant emotional payoff, willingly trading extraordinary future success for modest present comfort. They settle for what feels good now, unaware of the potential they sacrifice. In contrast, when you adopt a future-oriented decision framework, you unlock compounding advantages across knowledge, resource accumulation, and capability development. These elements build upon one another, creating exponential growth, not just linear progress. It's important to remember, effective delayed gratification isn't about harsh self-denial or asceticism. Rather, it's about strategic sacrifice, consciously directed towards specific, meaningful future goals. Look closely at those who maintain sustained, decades-long growth trajectories. What you'll invariably find are minds that derive real satisfaction from progress itself, not from the fleeting consumption of rewards or immediate validation. This mindset is what ultimately separates extraordinary achievers from talented underperformers in every field where significant accomplishment matters. So, will you commit to identifying 3 specific areas where your present focused tendencies are currently limiting your potential? Can you establish a deferred gratification protocol that systematically redirects your immediate impulses toward far superior future outcomes? Because the mind that others quietly fear, the mind that radiates quiet, steady strength, is exactly the mind that sacrifices present comfort for future capability. It's the mind that chooses meaningful, lasting progress over fleeting pleasure, regardless of how tempting immediate gratification might be. And as we consider that choice, we come to another profound principle: the power of deliberate conviction. Throughout history, something extraordinary distinguishes the individuals who transform entire industries, ignite movements, and reshape societies from those who merely generate incremental improvements. That difference lies not in luck or circumstance, but in their relationship with certainty. Consider what truly separates revolutionary figures from equally talented individuals who produce only modest progress. Is it superior intellect? Greater opportunity? More abundant resources? While these elements may contribute, beneath them lies something far more fundamental: the capacity to maintain absolute conviction in the face of overwhelming opposition. This kind of unshakable certainty creates a magnetic influence that conventional thinkers often find deeply unsettling. But why does this conviction-centered mindset generate such a profound advantage? Because human psychology is fundamentally wired to respond not just to intellectual arguments, but to certainty. Those who hold fast to unwavering conviction, especially amid skepticism, mockery, or isolation, naturally attract followers. Their psychological magnetism is something tentative thinkers struggle to understand or resist. When someone witnesses an individual whose certainty remains completely unyielding despite contrary evidence or social pressure, it creates a presence that commands attention. That immovable confidence radiates strength and quietly intimidates through its sheer steadfastness. So how does one cultivate this level of psychological certainty? It begins with understanding a crucial distinction between conviction and mere opinion. Opinions arise from casual consideration, often shaped by incomplete information or fleeting impressions. Conviction, on the other hand, is forged through systematic and comprehensive analysis, culminating in a level of absolute certainty grounded in thorough understanding. To build this conviction, adopt a rigorous methodology when forming any significant belief or position. Deliberately seek out and explore exhaustive counterarguments. Actively attempt to disprove your initial conclusion. Challenge your assumptions until only those that withstand intense scrutiny remain. Only after surviving this process of rigorous falsification should a belief solidify into unshakable conviction. This disciplined approach ensures your certainty rests on solid foundations of knowledge and critical thinking, not mere psychological comfort. Take the example of Winston Harrington, who revolutionized British industrial safety standards despite facing fierce opposition from manufacturing executives who resisted change. His unwavering conviction, built upon comprehensive evidence and relentless pursuit of truth, enabled him to overcome entrenched resistance and save countless lives. When asked about his extraordinary persistence amid overwhelming resistance, Winston Harrington revealed the foundation of his success: a principled certainty framework. "Before I advocated for any position," he explained, "I systematically documented every logical counterargument and addressed each one exhaustively." This comprehensive preparation built a level of unshakable conviction that no amount of standard opposition could destabilize. This methodical certainty didn't just protect his stance. It fueled a movement that ultimately transformed national safety standards, despite being initially rejected by every major manufacturing association in the country. Now pause and ask yourself, are you currently confusing tentative opinion with genuine conviction? Have you mistaken mere preference or fleeting belief for true certainty? What kind of extraordinary influence might be unleashed if your positions arose not from casual consideration, but from comprehensive, rigorous analysis, culminating in absolute conviction? Because when your psychological certainty becomes genuinely unshakable, something fascinating begins to happen. Others don't just reject your position less. They start to question their own opposition. That shift creates a level of persuasive leverage that goes far beyond what simple intellectual arguments can achieve. Most people hold their positions with subtle psychological tentativeness, unconsciously signaling uncertainty through their tone, body language, and choice of words. In contrast, Your absolute conviction generates a presence that automatically commands attention. It carries a psychological weight that transcends formal authority or credentials. But remember, effective conviction is fundamentally different from stubborn closed-mindedness. It isn't about rigidly clinging to an initial conclusion. Rather, it's about cultivating a comprehensive understanding so thorough, so deeply examined, that natural certainty arises, not defensiveness. Study closely those rare individuals who don't just dream, but transform entire fields and domains through sheer force of conviction. What you'll invariably discover is that their certainty didn't arise from casual opinion or fleeting belief. No, it was forged through systematic, rigorous analysis so thorough that it eliminated all meaningful doubt. Now, consider this challenge for yourself. Will you commit to transforming one significant opinion into genuine conviction by engaging in comprehensive exploration of counterarguments? Can you develop a certainty so absolute that it remains unmoved by opposition, mockery, or even temporary isolation? Because the mind that others quietly fear, the mind that commands quiet respect through strength, is exactly the one that stands immovable amid storms of opposition. This steadiness is not born from psychological rigidity or stubbornness, but from a depth of understanding so complete that doubt becomes fundamentally impossible. Now, let's turn to another profound principle that separates the visionaries who bring ideas to life from the equally brilliant individuals whose concepts remain forever unrealized: the philosophy of ruthless execution. Their relationship with implementation is what distinguishes them. Consider the revolutionary figures whose innovations reshape entire industries. What separates them from those who generate equally groundbreaking concepts but never bring them to fruition? Is it simply superior creativity, a more compelling vision, greater intellectual capacity? While these factors certainly contribute, beneath them lies something more foundational: a disciplined commitment to flawless execution, regardless of circumstance. This unwavering focus on implementation creates results that leave mere dreamers truly bewildered. Why does this execution-centered approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because the marketplace, and life itself, rewards doing far above dreaming. Ideas without action remain just that, ideas. But those who execute, who follow through with precision and persistence, build legacies. Those who execute imperfectly but consistently dramatically outperform those who spend endless time perfecting ideas but implement only sporadically. The gap between these two approaches isn't just noticeable, it's exponential. Because ideas without action remain forever worthless, stuck in the realm of possibility. Meanwhile, imperfect execution generates tangible value that can be refined, improved, and scaled over time. When someone observes an individual who reliably transforms concepts into reality with machine-like consistency, no matter the complexity, resistance, or resource constraints, it creates a presence that is impossible to ignore. This kind of relentless productivity quietly intimidates through sheer volume and unwavering follow-through. So, how does one develop this level of implementation mastery? Start by building a ruthless prioritization framework. Every proposed initiative, task, or project should be filtered through one singular, crucial question. What specific, measurable result will this action produce? This focus eliminates distractions and clarifies purpose. Next, create a systematic accountability architecture. Turn vague aspirations into precisely defined deliverables with non-negotiable deadlines and explicit success metrics. Without this structure, goals remain ideas. With it, they become realities. Most importantly, cultivate an intolerance for partial completion. Set a personal standard where tasks are not almost done, but fully completed. Avoid the endless cycle of projects left perpetually unfinished, a plague that traps many conventional achievers. Consider the example of Isabella Rothschild, who revolutionized European healthcare delivery despite beginning her career with minimal formal credentials. When asked about her meteoric rise, from administrative assistant to industry innovator, Rothschild shared the secret behind her success: her execution quotient methodology. While competitors debated theoretical improvements during endless committee meetings, she explained, "We implemented simplified, actionable solutions within 72 hours of conception." That disciplined commitment to rapid execution, even if imperfect, created breakthroughs that transformed an entire system. Imperfect execution, when refined through persistent iteration, consistently outperforms perfect planning that never sees the light of day. This relentless focus on implementation is what ultimately generates operational breakthroughs once deemed conceptually impossible by seasoned industry veterans. Ask yourself, are you currently mistaking planning for true productivity? Have you confused intellectual understanding and preparation with actual, measurable achievement? What extraordinary results might await if your implementation velocity could match your conceptual capability? Because when your discipline around execution becomes exceptional, something remarkable happens. You begin to accomplish in months what conventional operators might take years to achieve. This level of output can appear almost supernatural to those still anchored in planning and preparation. Most individuals invest disproportionate amounts of time and energy in conceptualization, research, and endless preparation. Yet, they perpetually delay action, masked as prudence or caution, but often rooted in psychological resistance. In contrast, your ruthless focus on execution produces tangible, undeniable results. It transforms theoretical possibilities into proven realities through the sheer power of consistent action. But remember, effective execution isn't about frantic busyness or exhausting activity. It's about strategic implementation, focusing your efforts on high-leverage actions that connect directly to your desired outcomes. Look closely at the rare individuals who have transformed entire industries through mastery of execution. You'll invariably find minds that combine visionary thinking with unwavering discipline in getting things done. They understand a hard truth: unrealized potential is the most tragic form of failure, far worse than any conceptual shortcoming, no matter how brilliant the idea. Will you commit to transforming one significant concept, currently confined to intellectual contemplation, into implemented reality within the next 30 days? Can you cultivate an execution discipline so reliable and unwavering that it becomes a fundamental part of your professional identity? Because the mind that others quietly fear, the one that commands respect through strength, is precisely the mind that transforms vision into reality with ruthless consistency. It's the mind that produces tangible results while others remain trapped in endless cycles of preparation, never truly launching. Now, let's shift to another profound discipline: the discipline of perpetual learning. What distinguishes individuals who maintain accelerating growth over decades from those who reach early plateaus and stagnate? It's their relationship with knowledge acquisition. Consider what separates revolutionary figures who completely transform entire domains from those who demonstrate impressive but ultimately limited mastery. Is it simply superior intelligence, enhanced opportunities, greater formal education? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something far more fundamental: a systematic commitment to aggressive, continuous learning, regardless of their current status or accumulated success. This relentless pursuit of knowledge creates a powerful developmental momentum, a momentum that conventional achievers often find genuinely mystifying. Why does this learning-centered approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because knowledge compounds through interconnection and integration, producing exponential rather than linear returns when acquired systematically. Those who maintain an aggressive learning velocity continually expand both their capability ceiling and their implementation efficiency. Meanwhile, those who rest on their existing knowledge face inevitable obsolescence as the environment evolves and demands new skills. When someone witnesses an individual who pursues knowledge with undeniable intensity, even after achieving recognized expertise or established success, it creates a presence that commands respect and often intimidation through its perpetual developmental momentum. So, how does one implement this kind of accelerated learning methodology? Begin by establishing a systematic knowledge acquisition architecture. Dedicate a minimum of 2 hours daily, focused exclusively on deliberate, purposeful learning, no matter how demanding your schedule or professional responsibilities might be. Next, embrace strategic knowledge diversification. Don't just deepen your existing expertise. Deliberately explore adjacent and seemingly unrelated domains, creating a fertile ground for intellectual cross-pollination. This approach sparks innovation by connecting ideas across fields. Most critically, develop an acute awareness of knowledge obsolescence. Regularly audit your current understanding, identifying outdated frameworks that need replacement, not mere adjustment. Consider the story of Richard Pendleton, who transformed American industrial engineering despite starting his career with educational credentials many competitors deemed wholly insufficient. When asked about his extraordinary rise from factory technician to industry authority, Pendleton revealed his secret: the perpetual apprenticeship methodology. While recognized experts rested comfortably on their established knowledge, he explained, I maintained a learning regimen identical to my earliest developmental stage. He committed 5 hours daily to knowledge acquisition, half dedicated to his specialty, and the other half deliberately exploring seemingly unrelated fields. This relentless discipline of continuous learning and exploration produced innovative approaches that many industry veterans considered theoretically impossible, given the accepted principles of the time. Are you currently confusing past education with ongoing development? Have you mistaken your current expertise for terminal knowledge, a finish line rather than a stepping stone? Consider this. What extraordinary capabilities might be unlocked through a systematic pursuit of knowledge diversification and continuous expansion? When your learning velocity remains undiminished by achievement or recognition, something fascinating happens. You maintain a steady developmental trajectory while many of your peers inevitably plateau, slowed by complacency in their knowledge. This creates a capability that continuously expands, a kind of growth that can seem almost supernatural to those content with their current status. Most individuals dramatically reduce their learning intensity once they reach professional competence. They unconsciously accept this limitation as the natural ceiling of their development, unknowingly settling into what becomes a trap of stagnation. In contrast, your discipline of perpetual learning generates compounding intellectual advantages. These advantages build upon each other, collectively producing exponential, rather than incremental, growth in capability. Remember, effective learning is not about passive consumption of information. It requires strategic acquisition, focusing on knowledge that directly supports your specific developmental objectives and goals. Look carefully at those rare individuals who sustained extraordinary growth over decades, not just years. You will invariably discover minds that combine achieved mastery with an undiminished intensity of learning, understanding deeply that knowledge satisfaction is the most dangerous form of professional complacency, regardless of current capability. Will you commit to establishing a non-negotiable daily learning protocol that at least matches the intensity of your earliest developmental stages? Can you maintain an apprenticeship mindset, continually hungry for growth, regardless of how much expertise or professional recognition you've accumulated? Because the mind that others quietly fear, the mind that commands strength, is precisely the one that pursues knowledge with undiminished intensity throughout its entire development. It creates perpetual growth, while others accept premature limits, lulled into complacency by the satisfaction of what they already know. Now, let's explore another profound force, the alchemy of emotional self-mastery. Throughout history, Something deeply significant separates individuals who maintain extraordinary performance, regardless of circumstance, from equally talented people whose effectiveness fluctuates wildly. What lies at the heart of this difference? Their relationship with emotional states. Consider what distinguishes revolutionary figures who deliver consistent excellence amid chaos, opposition, and uncertainty from those who display brilliance that's erratic and inconsistent. Is it superior intelligence? More refined methodology? Greater resources? While these factors certainly contribute, beneath them lies something far more foundational: their capacity for complete emotional self-regulation, regardless of external triggers or internal impulses. This psychological sovereignty creates a level of performance stability that those who react impulsively find genuinely unsettling. Why does mastering your emotions generate such a profound advantage? Because effectiveness correlates directly with emotional state. No matter how sharp your intellect or advanced your technical skills, those who maintain emotional sovereignty consistently access their full cognitive resources. Meanwhile, those who succumb to emotional reactivity experience perpetual fluctuations in performance, capability tied directly to the volatility of their emotional state. When someone witnesses an individual who maintains complete composure amid situations that trigger dramatic emotional destabilization in others, it creates a presence that genuinely intimidates through its almost unnatural stability. So how does one cultivate this level of emotional self-mastery? Start by implementing a systematic trigger identification protocol. Carefully document the specific situations, environments, or interactions that consistently provoke unproductive emotional responses. Awareness is the first step toward control. Next, develop a strategic pre-greetering methodology, a mental rehearsal practice where you envision and prepare your optimal responses before entering potentially destabilizing scenarios. By doing so, you create predetermined behavioral pathways, effectively bypassing automatic emotional reactivity and enabling deliberate action instead. Most critically, establish a physiological intervention discipline. Understand that emotion often manifests physically before it does psychologically. Use techniques such as respiratory control, muscular adjustments, and neurological pattern interruption to halt emotional cascades before they reach conscious awareness. Consider the remarkable story of Victoria Wellington, who revolutionized international diplomacy despite navigating geopolitical conflicts that many experts deemed emotionally unmanageable. When asked about her extraordinary effectiveness under intense pressure, Wellington shared her secret: her emotional sovereignty and methodology. While my counterparts allowed external circumstances to dictate their internal states, she explained, I implemented absolute emotional self-determination. Regardless of provocation or hostility, deliberate respiratory control paired with cognitive reframing helped her maintain an optimal neurochemical balance. This disciplined self-regulation enabled diplomatic breakthroughs that many observers considered psychologically impossible, given the surrounding tension and adversity. Now reflect. Are you currently allowing external triggers to determine your internal emotional states? Have you confused emotional authenticity with uncontrolled reactivity? What extraordinary effectiveness could you unlock through the power of systematic emotional self-regulation? Because when your emotional discipline becomes unshakable, it transforms your entire approach to challenges and interactions. When your emotional self-mastery becomes exceptional, something truly remarkable takes place. You sustain peak cognitive function precisely at moments when others experience a sharp decline in capability due to emotional hijacking. This creates a level of performance stability that appears almost inhuman to those who remain reactive and uncontrolled. Most individuals unknowingly surrender their psychological sovereignty through automatic emotional reactions to external triggers. As a result, they endure perpetual fluctuations in effectiveness, their abilities tied directly to their shifting emotional states. While many of my contemporaries pursued multiple worthy objectives simultaneously, he explained, I adhered strictly to the principle of absolute concentration, identifying the singular achievement that would render all others either unnecessary or automatically accomplished. He described how this purpose crystallization created a multiplication of resources invisible to those whose attention remained diffused and scattered. This sharp purpose specificity ultimately generated developmental breakthroughs that global authorities once deemed mathematically impossible, given the limited resources at hand. Now, consider this. Are you currently diffusing your mental energy across multiple simultaneous aspirations? Have you mistaken admirable activity for optimal concentration? What extraordinary achievement might be waiting for you through the systematic distillation toward a definite purpose? Because when your purpose clarity becomes exceptional, something truly fascinating occurs. You begin to accomplish singular objectives with a velocity that appears almost supernatural to those whose attention is scattered. This creates an acceleration of achievement far beyond conventional capability, powered by the sheer force of concentrated mental energy. Most individuals unconsciously scatter their finite resources across numerous worthy aspirations, experiencing perpetual limitation as a result of this attention dilution. In contrast, your definite purpose creates extraordinary leverage by focusing your complete psychic energy toward a specific achievement, rather than spreading identical resources thin across scattered goals. Remember, effective purpose is not merely fueled by enthusiasm. It demands ruthless specificity regarding the precise achievement you desire. Study closely those rare individuals who transform entire domains through a singular, focused contribution. Their power lies in this unwavering clarity and concentrated effort. You will invariably discover minds that combine broad awareness with narrow execution. These individuals recognize that the diffusion of purpose is one of the most significant barriers to extraordinary achievement, regardless of raw capability or talent. So now consider this challenge. Will you commit to conducting a comprehensive purpose distillation, identifying the singular achievement that represents the core aspiration beneath all peripheral desires? Can you develop absolute clarity regarding the specific outcome that signals your definite purpose fulfillment? Because the mind that quietly terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that channels complete mental energy toward a singular, definite purpose. This focused energy creates an extraordinary achievement velocity, while others remain perpetually limited by their scattered attention. Now, let's explore another profound principle: the science of decision-making. Throughout human accomplishment, something deeply significant separates those who transform potential into reality from equally capable individuals who remain perpetually trapped in endless analysis. What lies at the heart of this difference? Their relationship with decision-making. What distinguishes revolutionary figures who create extraordinary impact from those who generate impressive but ultimately unrealized potential? Is it superior intelligence? Enhanced opportunity? Greater resources? While these factors play a role, beneath them lies something more fundamental: their capacity for rapid, high-quality decision-making, a speed and decisiveness that transcends conventional deliberation. This decision velocity creates a powerful implementation momentum that perfectionists and chronic deliberators find genuinely alarming. Why does this decision-centered approach generate such an extraordinary advantage? Because across virtually every domain of significance, execution speed correlates directly with competitive advantage. The faster you decide and act, the sooner you generate results, and the more ground you gain over those who hesitate. Those who make high-quality decisions rapidly, consistently outperform those who make only marginally better decisions, but do so slowly by orders of magnitude. When someone observes an individual who transitions from analysis to action with seemingly supernatural speed, all without sacrificing decision quality, It creates a presence that genuinely intimidates through its unrelenting implementation velocity. So how does one develop this mastery of decision-making? Begin by implementing a systematic decision classification process, categorizing choices based on reversibility rather than the traditional evaluation of importance. Decisions with minimal reversal cost require minimal deliberation and should be executed swiftly. In contrast, irreversible decisions warrant a proportional amount of careful consideration. Next, establish adequate information thresholds that predetermine exactly what data qualifies as sufficient for decision-making, rather than allowing research and analysis to expand indefinitely. Consider the example of Blackwell, who, when questioned about her extraordinary implementation velocity amid unprecedented volatility, revealed her decision acceleration methodology. While competitors remained trapped in perpetual analysis, seeking perfect clarity, she explained, we implemented a two-tiered decision architecture. Reversible choices were made instantly upon minimal viable information, while irreversible decisions received precisely calibrated deliberation. She added, this decisional framework created an implementation velocity invisible to organizations shackled by perfectionism. This disciplined approach to decision-making ultimately generated technological breakthroughs that industry veterans considered developmentally impossible, given the stringent time frame constraints. Now pause and reflect. Are you currently confusing analysis with progress? Have you mistaken perfect decisions for optimal outcomes? What extraordinary implementation breakthroughs await you through the systematic acceleration of your decision velocity? Because when your decision-making becomes exceptionally efficient, something truly remarkable unfolds. You transform potential into reality with an implementation speed that appears almost supernatural to those still caught in the cycle of endless deliberation. This generates an achievement velocity far beyond conventional capability. By eliminating decisional friction, most individuals unconsciously extend their analysis well beyond optimal information thresholds. This results in perpetual limitations caused by delayed implementation. Your disciplined approach to decision-making creates extraordinary leverage by compressing the gap between conceptualization and execution. It recognizes that marginal improvements in decision quality rarely justify exponential delays in implementation. Remember, effective decision-making is not about recklessness. It's about strategic classification, prioritizing decisions based on reversibility rather than merely perceived importance. Look carefully at those rare individuals who transform entire industries through their mastery of implementation velocity. You'll consistently find minds that combine analytical rigor with decisional efficiency. They understand that perpetual deliberation is one of the most significant barriers to extraordinary achievement, regardless of conceptual brilliance. So, will you commit to implementing a systematic decision classification system based on reversibility rather than traditional importance evaluation? Can you establish adequate information thresholds that predetermine what data qualifies as sufficient for various decision categories? Because the mind that quietly terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that moves seamlessly from analysis to action with exceptional velocity, creating extraordinary momentum, while others remain perpetually trapped in the mire of deliberation. Now, let's explore the next profound principle, the mastery of strategic optimism. Consider what distinguishes revolutionary figures who transform limitations into unprecedented opportunities from those who remain perpetually confined by current realities. Is it superior intelligence, enhanced resources, greater opportunity? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something far more fundamental. Their disciplined cultivation of strategic optimism goes far beyond conventional positivity. This future creation mentality fosters a level of possibility awareness that pessimistic realists often find genuinely incomprehensible. Why does this optimism-centered approach generate such an extraordinary advantage? Because perception fundamentally precedes creation. Possibilities must first be envisioned before they can ever be realized. Those who cultivate strategic optimism consistently identify opportunity pathways that remain completely invisible to those trapped in problem-oriented perception. They construct solution architectures that negative realists dismiss as logically impossible. When someone observes an individual who repeatedly transforms what appear to be intractable limitations into exploitable advantages, it creates a presence that genuinely intimidates through its reality-transcending perspective. So how does one develop this powerful capability of strategic optimism? Begin by implementing a systematic opportunity extraction process when facing any challenge. Immediately conduct a comprehensive analysis that specifically identifies potential advantages hidden within apparent limitations. Next, establish a possibility expansion methodology. Deliberately explore solution pathways that conventional analysis deems impossible, systematically questioning every cannot assumption that restricts traditional thinking. Most critically, develop the practice of future backward thinking, mentally establishing your desired outcome as inevitable, then reverse engineering the creation pathway starting from that future achievement, rather than projecting forward from your current limitations. Consider the remarkable example of Jonathan Richardson, who revolutionized manufacturing despite economic constraints that experts widely considered categorically prohibitive. When questioned about his extraordinary innovation amid seemingly impossible limitations, Jonathan Richardson revealed the foundation of his success: his strategic optimism architecture. While competitors busied themselves with elaborate analyses, attempting to prove the impossibility of achievement, he explained, we implemented intentional perspective reversal, systematically identifying potential advantages hidden within every apparent constraint. This disciplined perceptual approach revealed opportunity pathways completely invisible to those trapped in problem-oriented analysis. This optimism-centered methodology ultimately generated manufacturing breakthroughs that economic experts deemed mathematically impossible, given the existing constraints. Now pause and reflect. Are you currently allowing circumstantial awareness to restrict your perception of possibility? Have you confused realistic assessment with optimal orientation? What extraordinary opportunities might remain hidden behind your limitation-centered perception? Because when your optimism evolves from mere emotion to a genuinely strategic force, something fascinating happens. You consistently identify possibility pathways completely invisible to problem-oriented thinkers by adopting a fundamentally different interpretation of reality. This creates solution architectures that appear almost supernatural to those biased by negativity and limitation. Most individuals unconsciously adopt a limitation-centered perception, mistaking it for realism and thereby experiencing perpetual constraint through what can only be described as opportunity blindness. In contrast, your strategic optimism generates extraordinary leverage by revealing advantage potential within apparent limitations, constructing achievement pathways that conventional analysis would consider logically impossible. Remember, effective optimism is not about naive positivity or wishful thinking. It is a disciplined perspective, carefully engineered to reveal concealed opportunities even in the darkest moments. Study closely those rare individuals who consistently transform crises into breakthroughs. You'll invariably find minds that combine factual awareness with an unyielding focus on possibilities. They understand that selective perception is a fundamental prerequisite for extraordinary achievement, regardless of harsh or limiting circumstances. Ask yourself, will you commit to implementing a systematic opportunity extraction process, specifically identifying hidden advantage potential within 3 current limitations? Can you establish a deliberate perception discipline that reverses the conventional problem-focused mindset into one that seeks opportunity? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that perceives possibility where others see only limitation. It creates extraordinary achievement through strategic optimism, while others remain perpetually constrained by narrow, realistic perception. Start training your mind as if your life depends on it, because it truly does. A powerful mind is not a gift. It is built brick by brick, forged through focus, pain, and relentless effort. Every distraction you resist, every fear you conquer, and every habit you master adds another layer to your unbreakable fortress. Stop waiting for confidence to arrive. Stop hoping for strength to find you. Build it. Own it. Forge a mindset so powerful that even your silence commands respect and authority. The time to build that mind is not tomorrow. It is now. Wishing you all abundant health, happiness, and don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Daily for more transformative content. In contrast, those who master their emotional resources, regardless of circumstance, create extraordinary advantages, especially within the most challenging and high-pressure environments. But remember, effective emotional mastery does not mean suppression or denial of feelings. Instead, it requires strategic regulation, a deliberate alignment of emotional states with optimal cognitive and physical functionality. Look closely at those rare individuals who maintain exceptional performance even amid dramatically fluctuating circumstances. You will invariably find minds that combine healthy emotional awareness with disciplined regulation. They understand deeply that psychological sovereignty is the fundamental prerequisite for consistent excellence, no matter the domain or external pressure. Now ask yourself, will you commit to developing complete emotional self-determination within 3 specific triggering contexts where you currently experience unproductive reactivity? Can you establish physiological intervention protocols designed to interrupt emotional cascades before they reach conscious awareness? Because the mind that others quietly fear, the mind that commands strength, is precisely the mind that determines its emotional states rather than being determined by them. This is the mind that maintains psychological sovereignty while others remain perpetually controlled by external circumstance. And as we explore mastery further, let's turn to the next profound principle: the architecture of strategic thinking across human achievement. There is something profound that separates individuals who consistently identify and follow optimal pathways from those who find themselves trapped again and again within conventional, limiting approaches. Their defining trait lies in their relationship with strategic cognition. Consider what truly separates revolutionary figures who transform seemingly insurmountable challenges into unprecedented opportunities from equally intelligent individuals who remain confined within established paradigms. Is it simply superior intelligence, greater creativity, enhanced access to information? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something far more fundamental. It is their systematic cultivation of multi-level strategic thinking, a cognitive architecture that transcends conventional linear analysis. This advanced thinking framework enables the creation of solution pathways that often leave linear thinkers baffled and mystified. Why does this strategic thinking approach generate such an extraordinary advantage? Because conventional cognition primarily operates through association and extrapolation, creating inherently limited solution sets constrained by existing mental frameworks. Those who intentionally develop their strategic thinking capacity consistently identify possibilities invisible to linear analysis. They do so through multidimensional pattern recognition and the conceptual recombination of ideas, breaking free from traditional constraints. When someone witnesses an individual who repeatedly transforms what appear to be intractable problems into elegantly solvable scenarios, it creates a presence that genuinely intimidates through its almost supernatural problem-solving velocity. So how does one cultivate this level of strategic thinking capability? Begin by implementing a systematic perspective-shifting protocol. Approach every significant challenge through at least 5 distinct conceptual frameworks instead of defaulting to habitual, familiar methods. This expansion of viewpoint prevents tunnel vision and sparks innovative solutions. Next, establish a deliberate assumption testing methodology. Identify the foundational premises that underlie conventional analyses, then systematically question each one by exploring contrary evidence and alternative possibilities. Most critically, develop a scenario projection discipline, mentally simulating multiple potential decision pathways through second dash, third dash, and fourth order consequence mapping rather than merely evaluating immediate outcomes. Consider the example of Hidetoshi Nakamura, who revolutionized Japanese industrial manufacturing despite resource constraints that experts considered categorically prohibitive. His ability to think strategically across multiple dimensions allowed him to overcome barriers others deemed insurmountable. When asked about his extraordinary breakthrough amid what seemed like impossible limitations, Hidetoshi Nakamura revealed the cornerstone of his success: his strategic architecture methodology. While competitors approach challenges through traditional problem-solution frameworks, he explained, we implemented a systematic perspective rotation. This meant examining the same circumstances through at least 7 distinct conceptual models, continuing this exploration until what appeared to be limitations transformed into exploitable advantages. This disciplined cognitive approach didn't just overcome obstacles. It generated manufacturing innovations that industry veterans once considered logically impossible, given the existing constraints. Now, reflect for a moment. Are you currently confining your analysis within conventional frameworks? Have you mistaken habitual approaches for truly optimal methodology? What extraordinary solutions might await you through the systematic cultivation of multi-level strategic thinking? Because when your strategic cognition reaches an exceptional level, something fascinating begins to happen. You consistently uncover high-leverage opportunities invisible to conventional analysis by employing perceptual frameworks that transcend standard evaluation. This creates a solution velocity that appears almost supernatural to linear thinkers. Most individuals unknowingly limit their problem-solving abilities by confining themselves to established paradigms, experiencing perpetual constraints born from unexamined analytical boundaries. In contrast, your disciplined strategic thinking generates innovative solution pathways that transform seemingly intractable challenges into elegantly resolvable scenarios, all through the power of perspective diversity and rigorous assumption questioning. Remember, effective strategic thinking is not merely a product of intelligence. It is a disciplined methodology that systematically transcends conventional analysis and unlocks extraordinary possibilities. Study closely those rare individuals who consistently transform entire industries through unprecedented solutions. You'll invariably find minds that combine analytical rigor with remarkable perspective flexibility. They understand deeply that paradigmatic constraints, not intellectual capacity alone, represent the greatest limitation to breakthrough thinking. Now consider this. Will you commit to analyzing one significant current challenge through at least 5 distinct conceptual frameworks, instead of defaulting to your habitual approach? Can you cultivate a perspective-shifting discipline that becomes a fundamental element of your cognitive architecture? Because the mind that others quietly fear, the mind that commands strength, is precisely the one that transcends conventional analysis. Through systematic perspective diversity, it transforms limitations into advantages by harnessing strategic cognition, while others remain confined within established paradigms. Next, let's explore a related but equally powerful discipline, the discipline of radical accountability. Consider what distinguishes revolutionary figures who turn limitations into opportunities from those who repeatedly cite external factors as excuses for underperformance. Is it superior capability? Greater opportunity? More abundant resources? While these factors may contribute, beneath them lies something far more fundamental: their unflinching commitment to radical self-accountability, a form of ownership that transcends conventional responsibility. This mindset generates a level of problem-solving intensity that those who make excuses find deeply unsettling. Why does this accountability-centered approach yield such extraordinary advantage? Because your sphere of influence expands in direct proportion to the level of responsibility you willingly assume, especially when you go beyond what's reasonably expected. Those who accept accountability only within the boundaries of formal obligation remain perpetually limited by circumstance. In contrast, those who embrace radical responsibility transform themselves into causative agents, actively shaping their environment regardless of official authority or title. When someone observes an individual who assumes complete ownership for outcomes far beyond their formal responsibility, it creates a presence that genuinely intimidates through its boundless resourcefulness and proactive mindset. So how does one cultivate this elevated level of ownership mentality? Begin by implementing a systematic excuse elimination protocol. Whenever you encounter underperformance or setbacks, immediately redirect your analysis away from external justifications and toward your personal contribution, regardless of the circumstances. Next, establish an ownership expansion methodology. A deliberate practice of systematically broadening the scope of your accountability beyond traditional norms, recognizing that discrimination is the default for expertise growth. Most critically, develop a solution-oriented reflex, one that reflexively replaces problem analysis with immediate action. Move swiftly from asking, "Why did this happen?" to "How will I resolve this?" bypassing any intermediate phase of justification. Now reflect. Are you currently confining your accountability within formal responsibility boundaries? Have you mistaken legitimate justification for optimal orientation? What extraordinary impact might you unleash through the systematic expansion of personal ownership, far beyond conventional expectations? Because when your accountability orientation becomes genuinely radical, something remarkable unfolds. You begin to identify solution pathways completely invisible to excuse-driven thinking, propelled by the sheer force of ownership-driven necessity. This generates results that appear almost supernatural to those who remain trapped in justification-oriented mindsets. Most individuals instinctively limit their accountability to what is reasonably expected, unconsciously restricting their impact through self-imposed responsibility boundaries. Your radical ownership creates extraordinary leverage by forcing innovative thinking, precisely because it eliminates the psychological escape hatch of justified limitation. Remember, effective accountability is not about harsh self-flagellation or punishment, but rather about strategic positioning for maximum effectiveness. Look closely at those rare individuals who transform entire organizations through ownership-centered leadership. You'll invariably discover minds that combine reasonable assessment with unreasonable responsibility. They recognize that accountability is the fundamental prerequisite for transformative impact, no matter their formal position or title. So now consider this challenge. Will you commit to eliminating all excuse-making from your behavioral repertoire for the next 14 days? Can you identify 3 specific areas where expanded accountability, despite limitations in formal authority, would create disproportionate impact? Because the mind that quietly terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that assumes ownership beyond reasonable expectation, creating extraordinary results where excuse-makers see only insurmountable obstacles. Now let's explore another fundamental principle, the alchemy of defined advantage, which distinguishes revolutionary figures who transform entire domains from those who produce commendable but ultimately forgettable contributions. Is it superior intelligence, greater opportunity, enhanced resources? While these factors certainly contribute, beneath them lies something even more fundamental: absolute clarity regarding a definite purpose. A purpose so specific that it transcends vague aspiration. This level of purpose clarity generates an achievement velocity that wandering, unfocused minds find genuinely mystifying. Why does this purpose-centered approach produce such an extraordinary advantage? Because mental energy, like any resource, operates under principles of conservation. It flows with intensity when directed at a clear, specific target, but dissipates when scattered across vague or conflicting aims. When your mental energy is concentrated toward a singular objective, it generates exponential impact, a powerful force multiplier. In contrast, when that energy is diffused across multiple directions, it results in negligible progress in any one area. Those who establish a definite purpose channel their entire psychic energy toward a specific, meaningful achievement. Meanwhile, those who cling to vague aspirations dissipate the same resources across scattered, unfocused objectives. When someone observes an individual whose entire existence seems organized around a single, clear purpose, it creates a presence that genuinely intimidates through its laser-like concentration and resolve. So how does one cultivate this kind of purpose crystallization? Begin by conducting a systematic desire inventory. Document every significant aspiration currently occupying your mental bandwidth, without filtering, judging, or qualifying them initially. Capture everything that demands your attention. Next, implement a ruthless priority distillation process. Subject each desire to an elimination tournament structured around a single, crucial question. Which accomplishment, if achieved, would render all others unnecessary or automatically fulfilled? Continue this methodical elimination until you identify the singular achievement that represents the core purpose beneath all peripheral desires and distractions. Most critically, develop absolute clarity regarding the specific outcome that signifies your purpose's fulfillment. Transform vague aspirations into a precisely defined achievement, complete with unmistakable completion criteria and measurable benchmarks. Consider the example of Thomas Wellington, who revolutionized international economic development despite beginning with resources that experts widely considered insufficient. When asked about his extraordinary impact amid overwhelming limitations, Thomas Wellington revealed the essence of his success, his definite purpose methodology.